Mark Truex Jr. will retire from NASCAR at the end of the 2024 season. Chase Briscoe is the lead candidate to drive the 19 car in 2025, and Noah Gragson could be headed over to Rich Strolls Racing in 2025. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight on those really quickly. We're first going to take a look at a ton of paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Shane Van Gisberger's 2024 Kubota scheme that we'll see this weekend at Iowa. Very similar to Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain schemes we've seen in the Cup Series. I think this looks really good on an Xfinity car, especially. This looks excellent. Kyle Sykes did a great job. I'm absolutely looking forward to see on the racetrack this weekend at Iowa. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Tyler Reddick's 2024 McDonald's Hamburglar scheme that we'll see this weekend at Iowa. Very similar to last year's scheme. I think this one's a little better than the Grimace scheme, or kind of close to that. I think this looks really excellent. McDonald's doing a really good job with activation. I think this looks great overall, to be honest with you. Next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Matt DiBenedetto's 2024 EREMA scheme that we'll see this weekend at Iowa. Good looking sponsorship, in my opinion. Really glad to see Matt DiBenedetto has a new sponsor for this weekend. It's a very solid looking paint scheme overall, to be honest. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Justin Allgaier's 2024 Hellman's Literacy scheme that we'll see at Nashville Super Speedway in a couple weeks. Really like this paint scheme. Of course, a foundation associated with Dollar General. I think this looks really solid overall. Looking forward to see on the racetrack later this year at Nashville. Next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Bubba Wallace's 2024 Grimace scheme that we'll see this weekend at Iowa. Very similar to the Grimace scheme from last year. I think this looks really great, though. It's along with the hamburger scheme, really great activation for McDonald's. I think this looks really excellent overall, to be honest with you. And a final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Jimmy Johnson's 2024 Carvana scheme that we'll see at the Brickyard 400. This looks excellent in my opinion. Love the colors on it, and absolutely great in colors. Looks very, very excellent. Looking forward to see on the racetrack later this year at the Brickyard 400, which is about a month from now. Looking forward to see it out on the racetrack. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Massey Motor Freight. As it was announced 2 days ago, the Massey Motor Freight has signed a multi-year, multi-race partnership with Legacy Motor Club. Massey Motor Freight will sponsor both John Nemechek and Eric Jones, I believe, at Nashville Super Speedway later this year, and some other races are not confirmed at this point. It's really awesome to see a new sponsor coming in. I think it's the first time the Massey Motor Freight has sponsored a top series Cup Series team ever, if I'm not mistaken, so this is really excellent news. Congratulations to Legacy Motor Club on picking up a new sponsor for later this year. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about 10X Health System. As it was announced yesterday, 10X Health System will sponsor Sam Mayer for 8 races in 2024. 10X Health System sponsored a select number of races in 2023 as well. I don't think Sam won with them, if I'm not mistaken, but it's really cool to see another sponsor that's been associated with Sam Mayer the last year or so coming back to sponsor him in 2024. I think it's really cool to see a new company coming in, and really glad to see the 10X Health System will sponsor Sam Mayer for 8 races in the 2024 season. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Iowa purse money. Every time we have a Cup, Xfinity Series, and truck race, Bob Pockets puts out the purse money. And according to Bob, for the Cup race, it's $8,881,630. And for the Xfinity race, it's $1,408,568. He does note this is based off the Auto Club money because Iowa replaced the Auto Club weekend for 2024. Some really good purse money for this weekend, especially for the teams that are chartered. Usually it's not this high. So I think the purse money for both Cup and Xfinity, especially with being less travel than going out to Auto Club, I think it's actually some pretty solid purse money. I'm glad to see the money up a little bit, and really cool to see there at least some good money being handed out to these teams at Iowa. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Dale Jr. download. As it was reported by SiriusXM NASCAR Radio that the Dale Jr. download will now be officially broadcasted on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Dale Jr. Dow has been one of the most successful podcasts and has had a lot of legends like Carl Lawrence at this point, even though we want to see him on there, but Mark Martin very recently. We've seen Mike Joy go on there in recent years, and a lot of great legends, even people like Luke Combs, have had the chance and opportunity to go on the Dale Jr. Dow. And the fact that we know that SiriusXM has a really big association with Dirty Mo Media, I think is absolutely excellent and really amazing to see. So nonetheless, really awesome and stuff, and glad to see that Dale Jr. Down will be on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio going forward, but it also will be on YouTube and Amazon Prime next year as well. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Jagger Jones. As it was announced yesterday that Jagger Jones will be driving to 33 for HMD Motorsports starting later this year at Mid-Ohio in Indy NXT. Jagger Jones has been focused on LMP3 for the last year or so. Remember, he actually also competed years ago in the ARCA West Series. I think he almost won some races, got beat by Haley Deegan, moved out of the way in that dirt race at the Las Vegas Bull Ring, if I remember correctly. And he's been very solid in Indy NXT, and he's been on the road to pro to get into IndyCar. And now he's going to get the chance and opportunity to drive for HMD. I think he's going to be driving for the rest of the year, or if not, just a few select races with this team. Obviously, HMD is Henry Malukas' organization. I think it's a really great opportunity for Jagger. I think he's a really talented driver, and I certainly think he's going to have a really great chance and opportunity to be extremely competitive. Looking forward to this and glad to see that Jagger Jones has a ride with HMD at Mid-Ohio and a few other races throughout the rest of the season. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Akinori Ogata. As it was announced yesterday that Akinori Ogata will be driving to 20 for Young's Motorsports in a few weekends at National Super Speedway. Akinori Ogata has made select starts so far in the 2024 season in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the Truck Series as well. I really don't expect much from him because Young's Motorsports had a little bit lack of pace and speed. I know Madison Massey has had some solid runs this year, but I'm really not expecting Akinori to really set the world on fire, unfortunately. I think he'll do okay, but I'm not expecting him to do much. I think they're going to have to qualify their way in with a lot of new teams coming in. We'll see what Akinori Ogata can do later this year at National Super Speedway. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Dawson Sutton. It was announced yesterday that Dawson Sutton will drive the 26 for Racquetball Racing in a couple weeks at National Super Speedway. Dawson Sutton, the son of Curtis Sutton, who is the president of Racquetball Racing, made his debut earlier this year at North Wilkesboro, where he showed some really good speed in practice, but unfortunately it did not go well in the race. I think they finished a lap or two down, and I think they finished outside of the top 20. Dawson's been doing a really good job in the late model scene. He's going to be competing in the late model race with guys like Ross Chastain and Carson Ospar and Josh Berry as well, I believe. So he's going to be running in that as well. I think Dawson is a very talented driver, and I think if they can make the show, he could do a really good job. It's a great opportunity for him, and glad to see that Dawson Sutton will be back behind the wheel and driving for Racquetball Racing later this year. National, he could be full-time next year. We'll see if that ends up happening, though, in 2025. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Christopher Bell. As it was reported by Oscar Nensky from Motorsports Wire, that Christopher Bell is expected to drive the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series next weekend at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Christopher Bell is already really good at New Hampshire in the Cup Series. He's won there in 2022, had a chance to win in 2023 before crashing out, I think, near the end of the race, and also almost won the race in 2021. And ran really well in 2020 with Levine as well. But if you look at his Xfinity Series stats, he's been extremely impressive. I believe in all but one of the races, he's gone to victory lane. I think he's got to be the favorite. JGR has been extremely good in New Hampshire over the years. Kyle Busch has won a lot with this team in the past, and also other drivers like Joey Logano have been very successful. I think Chris Bell is going to have a really great chance and opportunity, and I think he'll be a major threat and contender to go to victory lane with JGR next week at New Hampshire in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I think he'll have a good chance and opportunity to get it done. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Alon Day. As it was announced yesterday that Alon Day will drive the 45 for Alpha Prime Racing later this year in the Xfinity Series at the Chicago Street Course. Alon Day, for those who don't know, is a four-time Euro Series champion and also drove the Zombie Dodge that Carl Long had back in 2016. Alon is an extremely talented road course racer and has done some street course racing over the years. And I think Alon could be a serious threat or contender for a very strong run, especially with the experience he has on these types of tracks. I think Alon is actually going to do an excellent and fantastic job. I think the goal is, one, of course, to make the field, which I think Alon really is not going to have any issues and problems unless electrical issues can come to play, which it could be an issue for a car like that. But I don't really think it's going to affect a driver like Alon. I think he's going to be able to overcome that, and I think he's going to do an excellent and fantastic job. So fantastic opportunity for Alon. It's a great great car to be in, and like I said, really looking forward to see Alon have the chance to drive for Alpha Prime Racing later this year in Chicago. I don't think he's got any other races scheduled for the rest of the year, so good to see Alon get the one-off opportunity with the team this season. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Agustin Canapino. As it was announced last night that Agustin Canapino will be returning to Juncos Hollinger Racing next weekend at Laguna Seca and will stay in the number 78 car for the remainder of the 2024 season. Obviously, you've been paying attention over the last couple of weeks. We've seen the drama with Agustin Canapino. He sat out the last race, and it's kind of convenient with likes now not being public on X or Twitter. It's very convenient they brought him back. I really hope for Augustin's sake that he kind of keeps his head down going forward. He didn't really apologize in his video that he released, which I really think he should have apologized. And I really hope he's able to make turns to tail up a share going forward and he can just keep his head clean. Now, if life's being private, he can probably do whatever he wants on social media or whatever. But he needs to be very careful what he likes on social media, but at least now that'll be private. I think if he can keep his head down going forward, I think that'll be good for everybody. I really hope he can do that because I think Augustin is a talented driver, but he's got a really, really toxic fan base, and it's cost him opportunities recently. We'll see if he can keep his head down going forward, and once again, he'll be back with the team later this year at Laguna Seca, and we'll finish the rest of the year. The question will be, will Juncos Hollinger be around in 2025? That is still being determined at this particular moment and point. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Dale Jr. As Dale Jr. did a one-on-one with Bob Pockets, which we're going to talk about Junior Motorsports near the end of this episode. But one of the big talking points is about Dale Jr.'s driving career. And Dale Jr. says that he wants to run his late model for another 10 years, basically running the Cars Late Model Tour. However, he says it's year by year in an Xfinity Series car. Dale Jr. will be 50 years old at the end of the 2024 season. And Jr. obviously usually does one or two races. Last year he did two races at Bristol and Homestead, where he had a really good chance to win at Bristol and had a top 5 finish at Homestead Miami Speedway. And I think he's going to be a major threat and contender at Bristol as well. But Dale Jr.'s got a lot of other commitments currently at the moment. Obviously running the Cars Late Model Tour, though he's got people like Kevin Harvick, Ross Chastain, and Jeff Burton helping out with that series. He's also, of course, got other people in different directions. And he's doing running an Xfinity Series team, of course, and focus on that. And he's going to be really focused on Amazon going forward as well. I think Dale Jr. probably has a few more years left of running the Xfinity Series. My best guess is 2025 or 2026 is most likely when we will see Dale Jr. stop racing in NASCAR altogether. But Dale Jr. wants to race till he's 60 in late models, and I don't blame him. We've seen a lot of guys race in late models in their 70s and 80s. Even some guys come over to ARCA and race in their 70s and 80s. So it would make a lot of sense for seeing Dale Jr. continue, which I'm glad Dale Jr. is going to be sticking around in racing, at least in the late model scene. It's a shame that he might retire from NASCAR altogether, but he's got a lot of other things he's focused on, which I personally don't blame him for. Nonetheless, very interesting to look at, but glad to see Dale Jr. is kind of setting a timeline, but I also think it's going to be really sad when Dale Jr. does, in fact, decide to go ahead and retire from NASCAR altogether, because like I said, he's really fully retired, but again, he's focused on broadcasting, among other things, which if you got all those focuses, I don't blame you for not wanting to run as much as he'd like to run. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Joey Hand. Now, we talked about this on the channel a couple days ago, but it was originally teased by RFK Racing that they were planning the next race for Stage 60. I suggested maybe it was going to be Cam Waters or like a Haley Deegan or Matt Benedetto that was going to get the chance to get behind the wheel. Instead, it's another Ford driver. Joey Hand is going to drive the 60 for RFK Racing at the Chicago Street Course. Joey Hand has been a big help to the Ford drivers and development drivers as well on road courses and has made select starts for teams like Rickware Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series and has been pretty competitive in the select next-gen races he has ran. He also has a lot of next-gen experience, not next-gen, but a lot of street course experience racing in IMSA. And I think Joey Hand could be a sleeper pick for the win. Obviously, Shane Van Gisbergen's going to be running. There could be a couple other racers coming in, like Will Brown perhaps, and there could be other drivers that we don't know at this point that are entered. But I think that Joey Hand is going to have a chance of a top 15 or top 20. Now, reliability could be an issue. We saw that happen when we went to Sonoma, unfortunately, which did affect it. But I do think that if anybody can overcome that, it is definitely Joey Hand. I think he's an excellent race car driver, and he always gets the best out of equipment. So I'm very excited about this. I'm really looking forward to see Joey Hand get the chance and opportunity. My question is what other races will we see Stage 60 around? Are they going to run more races than just Chicago, or will they run more? Because I imagine that this is kind of a teaser of them looking to run a third car full-time. It's no secret that Brad Keselowski would like to have 3 full-time cars in the future, but they need $30 million, which that number's kind of drop to $20 to $25 million. And we don't even know if charters are going to be around with how bad charter negotiations are going. But I think this is a step in the right direction and a really great opportunity to see Joey Hand get the chance to drive for RFK Racing at Chicago. I think he's going to be an excellent and do a really good job with the team at Chicago later this season. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Andretti Global. Now, Mario Andretti was on the Dale Jr. download yesterday, and he talked about a very interesting thing around the 6-minute and 15 area to the 7-minute area. It was something that kind of caught me off guard. It sounds like Andretti Global is still interested in joining NASCAR. Mario Andretti says it's going to have a home in Cup, that being Andretti Global, and he hopes to be alive when it is around. This definitely caught me off guard, but it's not a surprise if you've been paying attention over the last year or so. It's no secret that Andretti and Andretti Global have been very interested in coming to NASCAR, and you go all the way back to 2013. I remember in 2012 when Dodge was looking to and they were looking for a team to kind of stay in the sport because Penske had committed in May of that year that they were going to be going to Ford. They actually had talked to Andretti Global, or Andretti Autosport at the time, about joining NASCAR. And they actually were going to do it. Kurt Busch was going to be one of the drivers. And from what I remember and understand, Matt Kenseth was going to be a teammate to Kurt Busch as well. And it would have been really cool to see them come in then. Now, they've been teasing over the last year or so that they could be coming in, but they haven't really made the move to jump into NASCAR. But I think there's a really good chance and possibly that it's going to happen in the next few years. I think there's 2 big things that will happen for them to come in. Number 1, I think they're going to take full control of Spire Motorsports. Dan Townes is a co-owner of Gamebridge, and Gamebridge has a massive investment in Andretti Global and Spire. And like I said, Dan Townes is a part owner of Andretti Global. The other big thing that will help them get in is Honda. There's been a lot of talk and conversations that Honda is going to join NASCAR in the next couple of years. Now, it sounds like I thought maybe it was going to be 2026, but even reports that come out from Bob Pockers and other intellectual people in the industry that have said it might not happen until as early as 2027. The bodies would have to be approved by September of this year for 2026, so 2027 could be the earliest. I think that Mario Andretti or Michael Andretti really wants to come over to NASCAR. Obviously, they're really heavily trying to get into Formula One currently at the moment. But I think unlike Formula One, NASCAR would 100% welcome them with open arms. And I think especially with them looking to get and work with Spire, it would make a ton of sense. Now, they could probably bring in drivers like Colton Herta, who is interested in racing NASCAR over the years. He wanted to race Eldora back in the day. I think Andretti coming into NASCAR would be really, really good for the sport, and I really hope it ends up happening. Now, of course, then buying into a team is not what we really want, but at the same token, same time, I think it's a really, really good move if they do decide to join, because I think they really should come in, and like I said, I really hope it ends up happening where Andretti comes in, because I think it'll be really good for the sport, and I think it'll be growth for NASCAR, especially as a whole. So like I said, I really hope it ends up happening where they can join, and I've been speculating for a while that they're going to join at some point, and the fact they're looking to do it is really awesome overall, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about IndyCar once again. Now, we've got 2 IndyCar stories that we're going to be going back to back. Let's talk about the first big one. It was officially announced earlier today that IndyCar will be joining the Fox family of networks starting in 2025. Every single race in the IndyCar schedule for 2025, which the 2025 schedule was released, every single race will be on main Fox, including both qualifying days for the Indianapolis 500 in 2025. This is going to be the first time in IndyCar Series history, going back many years, where every race will be on broadcast. Practice and qualifying sessions will be on FS1 and FS2. With the old deal with NBC, they were on Peacock every single time except the final day or so for the Indianapolis 500 qualifying. Indy NXT, which has been on Peacock, will now go on FS1, which is going to help those teams that are looking for sponsorship in Indy NXT. It was reported by Bob Pockrass as well that there is going to be a 5-hour window on the Indianapolis 500, and there will be a 2.5-hour window for the other races. Now, when this was originally reported yesterday that they were looking to finalize the deal, I was extremely skeptical, and I'm still a little bit skeptical about this deal. However, I am actually a little bit more optimistic about this deal than I was a couple days ago. One, every race being on Fox is an absolute huge dub and a major win for IndyCar. You compare that to the NASCAR deal that they have for next year. Only 5 races are going to be on broadcast next year. This is a huge dub for the growth of IndyCar. Another big dub, like I mentioned, every NXT race is going to be on FS1. Most people have FS1, and remember, FS1 used to be Speed Channel. And that's a really good thing as well. It's going to help with sponsorship, among other things. So I think that's another big dub in this deal. The other big thing is that Fox, I don't think, will have full control of the production. IMS Productions will have a huge say on how the production works. With NASCAR, they have their own production company for Fox. If this is a huge dub. The big thing I'm worried about is the on-air talent. And I really hope they bring in people from IndyCar, like a Kevin Lee, like some other people. Bring people in that, and John Beekes, if John Beekes is available, bring him in. Bring in James Hinchcliffe. Bring him into the broadcast booth. There's been rumors that Adam Alexander might be calling the IndyCar races, which Adam Alexander, I think there's no doubt in my mind that he's absolutely improved. But I also think he's not someone that would be doing an amazing job as an IndyCar commentator. I know from what I've seen people say, he's done Indy 500 broadcasts in the past. So that is something I'm a little worried about. And also, please do not put Jamie Little in the booth. She is not qualified to be in a booth, in my opinion. But as for IndyCar, this is a big dub for them. Not a massive dub, but it's definitely a big dub. It's better than what NBC was giving them. Again, the streaming side is something I question as well. And as much as I've criticized IndyCar on a lot of things, I think this is at least a win. The big question will be some of the other factors, whether the deal is a big win itself. I think it is a win for sure, but we'll have to see how it plays out. I don't think it's going to be too good to be true. I actually think this is a big win for IndyCar, and I'm glad to see that there's actually some good things coming out from this TV deal because more money is going to be going to these teams, which I think is a huge win for them overall, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we are talking about the 2025 IndyCar schedule. Along with the broadcast deal being officially announced with Fox, the 2025 IndyCar schedule has been officially revealed. So here's the schedule for 2025, which every race will be on Fox. The season's going to kick off on St. Pete on March 2nd. Then there's going to be a 2 to 3 week break. Then we'll go to the Thermal Club for a points paying race on March 23rd. Then there's another 3-week break, which will take place at Long Beach on April 13th. After that, another 3 to 4 week break at Barber on May 4th. Then we'll have the Indy Road Course on May 10th. You'll have the Indy qualifying sessions for the Indy 500 the week after that. And then the Indy 500 will take place on May 25th. After that, they'll go to the Detroit Grand Prix on June 1st. And here's another big change. Worldwide Technology Raceway moves from August to June 15th at that track. Then they'll go to Road America on June 22nd. Then they'll go to Mid-Ohio on July the 6th. Then they'll have the Iowa doubleheader on July 12th to 13th. Then the race at Toronto on July 20th. Then the race at Laguna Seca on July 27th. Then they'll go to Portland on August 10th. Then they'll go to Milwaukee on the 24th, so a 2-week break. And then they'll have Nashville on August 31st. The positives here is every single race is on Fox. That'll grow the sport in a big way. But there are definitely some pretty big negatives, and David Lane actually pointed out in his video earlier today. Number one, the amount of breaks early in the season. That is not good in my opinion. Granted, you're going to get promotion from the Super Bowl, and they're going to have the Daytona 500 as well. We'll be able to promote IndyCar, which I think is going to help. But like the big problem IndyCar has had in recent years is the early portion of the season before the Indy 500, they don't have a lot of races. This was a big problem for when NBC had control of it before this past year, and also when they kind of took over, there basically is less races early in the year. Now, don't get me wrong, having a lot of races in the middle of the year, and I get weather is a big issue, you need to find a way to fill up races early in the year. Homestead Miami Speedway should be on the schedule. The fact that Texas is not on the schedule is really, really bad. You need Homestead on there. You need Michigan on the schedule personally. I'm not a big fan of Detroit getting on the schedule. Also, one thing you know is that the Truck Series race for Milwaukee weekend, that's going to be announced as well, I think on August 24th or 25th, if I'm not mistaken, for the Truck Series. But another big negative for me is seeing the Thermal Club. Not a big fan of that personally, being a points-paying race. I was not a fan of the exhibition race. I don't think it's going to be a good race. I think it's going to be very lackluster. Another negative is Worldwide Technology moving earlier in the year. Why? Well, Worldwide Technology will basically be the week after the Cup race pretty much for the most part, but also that's going to have conflict with Le Mans. And I'm not a big fan of Le Mans having a conflict because this year I have a lot of IndyCar drivers that are going to be racing in the Le Mans 24 hours this year. I think that is also a major negative for IndyCar as a whole on the schedule. There's another big positive. The final two races are going to be ovals. Now, there's no Milwaukee doubleheader this year because one of the Milwaukee races got replaced with a race at the Thermal Club, but at least the end of the season will be on ovals, which I think will promote some really excellent and great racing. Overall, I think there's definitely some positive for sure with the schedule, but there's also a lot of negatives. But at least we're going to have every race on Fox, which I think is a big positive for sure, and it will hopefully grow the product of IndyCar to a lot of fans who will be watching for the first time. I think it's really excellent stuff overall, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Junior Motorsports and the potential of them going up to the Cup Series. This has been a big talking point over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. You have to go all the way back to when Josh Berry won his first career NASCAR Xfinity Series race in the number 8 car with Junior Motorsports. Dale Jr. got asked back then about the potential going Cup racing, and Dale Jr. said they talked about it. And they've been talking about it for the last 3 years, whether they're going to join. Now, Bob Pockers actually caught up with Dale Jr. during the Dale Jr. and the Junior Motorsports media days, and Dale Jr. says that right now they are not buying a charter, and they're really uncertain if they're even ever going to go Cup Series racing in the future. And they don't plan to go Cup Series racing as of now for this point for 2025. And they said that if they were looking to get a charter, they would probably get an investment, which I don't think a lot of fans would want. Now, this is definitely a shame to hear, but at the same time, I'm really not surprised. Look, we don't even know right now if charters are going to be around in the 2025 season. Negotiations behind the scenes are really not going well at this particular moment and point. So that's one reason why Junior hasn't made the move. That being said, with Stewart Haas Racing offloading their charters, it would have been the perfect time to come in. I'm not saying I'll control what Dale Jr. invests in and what money he spends, but this would have been the perfect time to get in. But if Dale Jr. wasn't going to invest in charters for $2 to $3 million, do you really think that Dale Jr. was going to spend $20 million on a charter? Probably not. Now, the investment side of things gets very interesting, but Dale Jr. apparently doesn't really have any investors at a moment. But I think the perfect solution would have been going over to JTG Doherty Racing and investing with that program. We know right now that they're expected to have ownership change as Kroger is expected to go over to Joe Gibbs Racing and Tad and Jody Schechter are expected to go over there in 2025, and they really have not been associated with the team as Gordon Smith is really running the operations over at JTG currently at the moment, and there will be some ownership changes over there. I imagine that Dale Jr. would be looking to work over there. That could certainly be an option as well. But let's talk about drivers if Junior Motorsports was to move up. They could have someone like a Matt Benedetto perhaps. They could have their drivers like Sam Mayer and Sammy Smith. They've been mentioned and rumored as possibilities of drivers going Cup racing at one point this year. You've also got other drivers who could be options as well, like a Justin Allgaier and Brandon Jones, who bring funding and sponsorship, or someone like an Anthony Alfredo and Kyle Weatherman. And also you have to look at the other thing too. Rick Hendrick has a part ownership in Junior Motorsports as well. With the new clause coming into the charter agreement very, very soon, I think Rick Hendrick is going to have to sell a stake in Junior Motorsports for this to work out and to happen. Do I want to see Junior Motorsports go Cup racing? Yeah, for sure, 100%. I've been saying it for years that I think that Junior Motorsports in the Cup Series would absolutely be good. But at the same time, if it's going to cost a lot of money to own a charter and invest into it, there really is no point because it's really a digital piece of paper. And again, we know the charter's values have dropped a little bit. If charters were worth $5 to $10 million, I think Dale Jr. would have absolutely maybe made the move over to get one. But if Dale Jr. wasn't spending that money, I don't think he was really going to join. I do want to see Dale Jr. and Junior Motorsports in the Cup Series. Do not get me wrong. But it's going to cost a lot of money for this to happen. So we'll see what happens in regards to this long term, whether or not Dale Jr. and Junior Motorsports really ever decide to join the Cup Series. Because again, I think all of us really want to see Dale Jr. make the jump up the Cup. But as of right now, Dale Jr. is focused on running the Xfinity program, which they've been really exceptional over the years. We don't know what the Xfinity program will look like for 2025 with their lineup. But as of right now, Junior Motorsports is not planning to join the Cup Series. And like I said, as much as I want to see Junior Motorsports jump the Cup, I don't think it's really happening at this current moment overall, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about Martin Truex Jr. As it was expected to be officially announced later today that Martin Truex Jr. will retire from NASCAR at the end of the 2024 season. This has been rumored. We did a video talk about this yesterday on the channel, but Martin Truex Jr. will officially announce he'll retire at the end of the 2024 season. It is a really big shame. Martin Truex Jr. has had a really illustrious career in the NASCAR Cup Series, but when you think about what Martin Truex Jr. has been able to accomplish really just in the last 10 years, because there was a lot of hype around Martin Truex Jr. when he drove for DEI and Chance 2 Motorsports in 2004 and 2005. But really from 2006 up until the 2011 season, he only had one win during that time. But he really started coming to his own in the 2012 to 2013 season and actually nearly made the playoffs in 2013 and did win a race at Sonoma. But he really struggled early in his career. The moment where everything kind of clicked was 2015, where he went on to win one race with Cole Pearn, was able to make it to the Final Four that season. Then in 2016, he won 4 races and had a very solid year and went on to have that amazing championship year in 2017 and had a lot of success for many years. But the stats started falling off near the end of the time, especially when James Small started coming on in 2020. When Cole Pearn left after 2019, the performance started to dip. We've been talking about the possibility of Martin Truex Jr. unfortunately retiring really for the last 2 or 3 years. He's been kind of teasing it. But we know Joe Gibbs has been really pushing for a decision over the course of the last few weeks. And we are expecting an announcement, like I said, later today. I grew up being a Martin Truex Jr. fan, or kind of been a Martin Truex Jr. fan really since around 2012, 2013. He's someone I've kind of respected for a long time, and seeing Martin Truex Jr. go from someone at one point that was considered to be a bust to being a first ballot Hall of Famer personally is really excellent to see. Martin is one of the greatest drivers in NASCAR Cup Series history, and like I mentioned, is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and really is kind of that bridge gap to the last kind of great drivers coming from the golden era of the sport, the biggest moments of the sport. The only 2 drivers that were around are now going to be around from when I basically became a fan are Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin. I became a fan nearly 20 years ago, back in 2007, and Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch are going to be the only 2 full-time drivers around, and we don't really know how much longer Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin are going to be in the sport. So thank you, Martin Truex Jr., for everything that you accomplished in this sport. But we now got to talk about the future. Who is the most likely candidate to replace Martin Truex Jr. in 2025? The favorite right now, according to Bob Pockrass and Jordan Bianchi, is Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe is a lead candidate to take over the 19 seed, which a few weeks ago I was really shocked when his name was mentioned. But it makes a lot of sense. Chase Briscoe has been the best driver at Stewart-Haas Racing over the last couple of years. Well, really not true because Kevin Harvick is great, but Chase Briscoe has been really solid and has been doing a really good job over Stewart-Haas Racing the last 2 years. And a lot of teams and organizations really are looking at Chase Briscoe as a possibility. But he's been with Ford for so many years. And it's kind of shocking, but at the same token, same time, it really isn't a surprise. Chase Briscoe is actually a lot older. He's almost 30 years old. And Briscoe, I think if you put him in a Joe Gibbs Racing seat, he's going to be a borderline contender for the championship. And I think he's going to start winning a lot more races. He won, of course, back in 2022. And I think he's been doing a really good job over there at that night over Stewart-Haas Racing for many years. And I think he's going to do, like I said, a very excellent job at Joe Gibbs Racing. I predict going to 2025 that Chase Briscoe is going to have at least a 1 to 2 win season. And the question I'll have is, will he bring people over from Stewart-Haas Racing over to work with him next year, or like Richard Boswell perhaps, or is he going to be working with James Small? Because I think he should have a say on who gets the seat. And then you think about the other possibilities. You do have Chandler Smith, who could be an option as well for that 19 car, but it sounds like Chandler Smith might be waiting until Denny Hamlin makes a move, which Denny, we know, only has a contract through next year, so Denny Hamlin is technically a free agent. Eric Almirola's also mentioned as a possibility for the 19 car, but Eric Almirola's also a little bit older at this point, and I think Chase Briscoe would make a lot more sense. So then you got to look at the other portions of silly season. What about Noah Gragson? Well, Noah Gragson is the current favorite to go to a third Richard Childress Racing team, and the reason being is because Bass Pro is really fully committed to Noah Gragson now. The only reason Bass Pro is really over at Joe Gibbs Racing is because of Martin Truex Jr., because they've had a commitment with Martin Truex Jr. for a very long time. Noah Gragson's been committed with Bass Pro Shops really since 2018 in 2019 season, and they really like Noah. They're sponsoring this weekend, of course, at Iowa Speedway, and they're a big full commitment to a third car. Now, obviously, we know Austin Dillon just signed a multi-year extension over at RCR, and Kyle Busch, who has one more year, we'll talk about here in just a second. But Noah Gragson is a really good talent, and he was, like I said, a driver that was a candidate for that 19 seat, but he's a really, really good driver too, and I think he would have been a great driver for the 19. But the reason why he's likely not going over to Joe Gibbs Racing is because Toyota really does not like Noah Gragson. So that's why Noah Gragson is going to be probably going over to RCR, which I think Noah Gragson, no disrespect to Austin Dillon, should be in the 3 car, but Austin Dillon is a grandson, and he wants to race at least for a few more years. But I expect Noah Gragson going over to RCR and picking up some other sponsors as well along the way. And the other big reason why Chase Briscoe would be a good pick is he does bring sponsorship like Mahindra to the table. But also you have to think about this. I mentioned this with the Kroger rumors. Kroger is likely going over to Joe Gibbs Racing, which means sponsorship really ain't going to be a big factor going forward. But let's transition to talk now about Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch's name has been mentioned in the last week or so as a possible candidate for the 19th seat as well. However, we do know he has an option year for Richard Childress Racing. Had Kyle Busch not had that option year with RCR, I think that he would have been a very easy candidate to go after and get. And Kyle Busch, I think, would do an excellent job over at Joe Gibbs Racing. I think he would be back to his form. I think it's no secret Kyle Busch has been frustrated with RCR recently. But I think he's also, I don't know if he'd be a honeymoon welcome phase, but I think they need veteran people over there. But Chase Briscoe brings that veteran experience. But Kyle Busch isn't going back to JGR, at least now. Maybe he can go over and take over Denny Hamlin's seat if Hamlin retires at the end of next year. But I think Kyle Busch more than likely is going to go there. And then you got to look at the other aspects of silly season. We know 2311 Racing is looking at trying to pick up Corey Heim for 2025, but we also know that Riley Herbst, according to multiple reports, is a frontrunner for a third 2311 seat. This is no disrespect to Riley Herbst, but Corey Heim is a much better driver than Riley Herbst. He always gets the best out of equipment. He's won 4 races this year, and he's making a start in a couple weeks at National Super Speedway in a third car. I get that Riley brings sponsorship and funding to the table, but at the same time, I think that there's more qualified drivers, like an Eric Almirola. If Carl Edwards wanted to come out of retirement, maybe him. Kurt Busch as well. We know that Bubba Wallace is also expected to sign a multi-year contract with 2311. We know it's coming very, very soon. Let's transition away and talk about some other drivers. Front Row Motorsports, they're expected to announce not too far down the road their lineup probably. Many people think Josh Berry could be a potential candidate for one of these seats. Same with Cole Custer. But what if Cole Custer doesn't go there and goes to the Wood Brothers? Because Harrison Burton, I expect to be out of the Wood Brothers at the end of this year. That could also be a place where Riley Herbst ends up going to, which I think that actually could end up being the driver who replaces Harrison Burton next year, because Riley Herbst really ain't going to have to worry about funding. But the other big thing is Trackhouse Racing. We know Trackhouse Racing has a major dilemma currently at the moment, trying to figure out who's going to be going to that third seat next year. I think SVG is the most likely candidate to go to the third Trackhouse seat, because while I think Zane Smith, he does have commitment with Trackhouse, I think Zane Smith's been struggling so bad this year. Yet the last 2 weeks he's gotten 2 top 20s, but if you've got SVG, you don't give him another year in Xfinity. You've got to move him up the Cup. I think he's going to do a much better job. He's got the sponsorship funding with him, and as much as I do like Zane Smith, and I do rate Zane Smith very heavily, I think SVG is a much more talented and better driver right now. And he's going to get better on ovals, and I think he's going to learn more on ovals in a Cup car. And you look at his average finish on ovals generally, he's got like a 14th or 15th place average finish if you take away what happened at Las Vegas Motor Speedway where he had a motor failure. So I think SVG will make the move there. back to the stuff with Mark Truex Jr., it is sad to see that he is going to be retiring at the end of the year. It's really sad to see. We'll have a video discussing this once again later today when it's officially announced, but Mark Truex Jr. will retire at the end of the year, and like I mentioned, it's very sad. We are expecting Chase Briscoe to be the lead candidate for that ride, but we'll have to wait and see who ends up actually being the driver who gets to see in 2025. Keep an eye on it because I think silly season is going to get wild and crazy. I think it's going to get very wide open very, very soon. So that is going to be today's NASCAR news and motorsports news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support my Patreon as well. Links go below that, and comment your thoughts below on today's video. Do you think Chase Briscoe will take over the 19 car 2025 or the 18 car if they rebranded? Let me your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Junior Motorsports and all the other silly season moves that could be happening? Let me your thoughts in the comments below. Later today, I'll have another video talking about Mark Truex Jr.'s retirement announcement. More than likely, if any major news breaks throughout the rest of the day, we'll discuss it here. Tomorrow on the channel, also, we are going to have the Xfinity Series race review, the reactions to Cup Series qualifying, and we'll also have a Shane Van Gisbergen video dropping as well. Then on Sunday night, we'll have the Cup Series race review from Iowa. We'll have the starting lineup video as well. I've got some videos dropping around the 19 car that you're going to see really, really soon. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.